The house wasn't always there. It appeared every 7th autumn, quiet, waiting, along a logging trail in the eastern woods of Wren Hollow, nestled in the Appalachian Range. No one remembered building it. No one claimed it. But every time it returned, someone disappeared. The year was 1904, a dry October. The leaves had turned without color, brown and gray, as if nature itself had dulled with age. The fog rolled low in the hollows and wouldn't lift, not even by noon. Silas Ward, 19 and reckless, had heard the stories all his life. He never believed them. Not until he saw the chimney smoke. It coiled upward in the trees like a signal. He didn't tell anyone. He just followed it. The path was old, buried under rotting leaves and deer bones. He walked for an hour, maybe more, until the fog thickened around his boots and the birds stopped singing. Then, there it was. The house. Exactly as folks had described it. 2 stories. Weathered siding, gray as ash. Shutters nailed shut. No path to the porch. No footprints in the soil. And a single lantern burning behind the 2nd-story window. The front door stood open. It hadn't been moments before. There was no wind. Silas stepped onto the porch. The wood didn't creak. He peered inside. Dust, cobwebs, faint smell of pine smoke, and silence. He should have turned back, but then he saw it. A mirror, hung crooked on the wall, facing the door. It reflected everything inside the room, except him. He stepped back. The porch was gone. So were the woods. Only the door remained. And when he turned back, the room had changed. The dust was gone. The fire was lit. And someone was sitting at the table. A woman. Gray dress. Hair braided down her back. Hands folded in front of her. She did not look up. She did not breathe. She only whispered, "Close the door, Silas." But he hadn't told her his name. He ran, tried to run, but there were no walls, no floor, no ceiling, only fog. The house had vanished, but not entirely. He still smelled the smoke. He still saw the lantern. And when he reached the edge of the woods, hours later, breathless and wild-eyed, his boots were dry. His hands were clean, but a key he didn't own was clutched in his fist and carved into the brass. "You let her see you." Silas didn't tell anyone. Not at first. Not when he stumbled back into Wren Hollow near dusk, pale and shaking, the fog clinging to his clothes like a second skin. Not when his mother asked why his boots were clean after a day in the woods. Not even when his brother Jonah asked why he kept looking over his shoulder, like something had followed him home. But the key burned in his pocket. Not hot. Alive. It was old brass, shaped like a house key, but heavier than it should have been. The teeth were too long. The ring was rusted. And carved into one side were words he hadn't seen before. Seen. Remembered. Owed. He threw it into the creek behind his house. It was back in his pocket the next morning. By the 3rd day, he couldn't sleep. Not because of nightmares. He didn't have those. He had nothing. No dreams. No rest. Only a single slow breath that echoed under his bed, even when he held his own. He went to old Elsie. People called her a witch. She called herself practical. She lived in a shack made of mismatched windows, half a mile up the ridge, where birds didn't sing. When she saw the key, she didn't speak. She just turned it over once in her palm. and winced. "You walked past the porch," she said. "You stepped inside. Did you look in the mirror?" Silas didn't answer. He didn't have to. She stepped back, refused to touch him again. "You've been marked," she whispered, "and that house don't let go. It waits." You brought it closer. That night, it rained, but not over Wren Hollow, only over Silas's home. A cold, soundless downpour that left no puddles. He stayed awake, staring at the key on the table. At midnight, it moved, just slightly, turned half a rotation on its own. And then he heard it, knocking. 3 slow knocks. Not on the front door, not on the windows. From inside the mirror. He covered it with a blanket, smashed it the next morning, burned the shards. But by evening, there was another mirror in its place. Same frame, same crack, same shape, and this time he was inside it. But the room behind him was no longer his. It was the house, and behind him stood the woman in gray, closer now, waiting. She never moved, not once, not when Silas blinked, not when he smashed the mirror again, not even when he turned the glass away and left the room. She just stood there, in the reflection, hands folded, dress gray and stiff like dried linen, hair braided down the spine, and eyes like smoke through lace. And every night she was closer. By the 7th day, Silas couldn't leave the house. Something followed him in the woods. A shadow with no shape. Footsteps where there was no earth. A whisper every time he turned around. He wasn't the only one who noticed. His brother Jonah found a dead owl nailed to their barn door, its eyes removed and replaced with shards of glass, its wings bent backward, and its beak held a scrap of parchment. "Tell no one, or she finds too." Silas confessed everything. To Jonah, to the mirror, to the night. It didn't matter. The key turned again in his pocket, this time hot enough to blister. He dropped it. It hissed on the floorboards. Didn't burn through. Didn't scorch. Just sank. Melted into the wood like wax into dry cloth. When he pried up the board, the key was gone. But in its place was a hole. And from that hole, he heard a voice he didn't recognize, but knew. "You're already in the house." Jonah saw it too. The room behind Silas's bedroom wall didn't belong. It didn't match the layout. Had no window. And the door, black, old, iron-handled, was never there before. But now it was. And when they tried to open it, the knob wouldn't turn. Except at 3:17 a.m. every night. That morning, Silas went to the sheriff, told him the truth, as much as he dared. The sheriff listened, chewed his pipe, and said only one thing: "My father vanished in that house. So did his sister, and her husband, and their boy. You should have turned away." He opened a drawer, pulled out a cloth. Inside was a key, brass, old, identical. "You're not the first, but you might be the last. Burn your name." Silas didn't understand, but the sheriff handed him a slip of paper and a match. "Do it before she says it out loud." That night, Silas wrote his name, held it over the fireplace. But just before he lit it, he heard her voice, right behind him, soft, cold, "Silas Ward." And then, the door opened. Silas did not walk through the door. The door walked through him. It swung open at 3:17 a.m. without a sound. Inside, a room too deep for the house's walls. A hallway that stretched farther than the ridge itself. And at the end, only darkness. Breathing. Not wind. Not sound. Breathing. Jonah saw none of it. To him, the room was just a coat closet. Empty. Small. Nothing out of place. But when Silas looked again, the lantern was lit. It burned cold, pale green, flickering, hung from a crooked hook in the ceiling, and beneath it, scrawled across the floorboards in dried mud or old blood, "She waits for the last." Silas stepped back. The air grew thick. The smell of damp wood and grave dirt seeped through the walls. He slammed the door, nailed it shut, burned the nails. But it opened again the next night, and the night after, and every time he peered in, the hallway grew longer, the lantern brighter, and the woman closer. Jonah begged him to leave town, but where? The fog rolled in from the ridge and never left. The woods groaned at dusk, and the sky over their house turned the wrong color before dawn, blue-gray, like old skin. Then came the voices, not from the mirror, from beneath the floorboards. Soft, familiar, names, dates, phrases that never should have been heard again. Their father's lullaby, their mother's prayer, and one voice that did not belong. "You know this house, Silas. You were always meant to." He tried to burn it, doused the door in oil, lit the match. Flames caught, flared, then vanished, not smothered, devoured, and in their place, smoke formed a shape, a face. Her face. No eyes, only the mask of her waiting, and a whisper that froze the room. "The door isn't in your house. Your house is in mine." That night, Jonah disappeared. No signs, no tracks, no sound, only a smudge on the mirror, shaped like a hand pressed from the inside. And next to it, a second key, cold, black, heavy, and carved with the word, "Yours." The second key was heavier, worn smooth, blackened like coal. No teeth, no markings, except the word carved down its length. "Yours." Silas held it in shaking hands. It didn't unlock anything. Not the front door. Not the cellar. Not the room behind the mirror. It wasn't meant to open. It was meant to remind. Jonah was gone. No signs of struggle. No note. Just his boots at the end of his bed, side by side, facing the door. And on the pillow where his head had lain, a single scrap of mirror glass. Silas didn't look into it. He already knew what he'd see. He went back to old Elsie. This time, she didn't open the door, but her voice came through the wood, worn and afraid. "He's not dead. He's kept. She doesn't kill, boy. She stores." Silas begged, asked how to stop it, how to undo the door, burn the key, break the house. But Elsie's voice trembled. "You can't break what never lived. That house is a mouth, and the key is your name, boy." Then silence, then splintering, and the door to Elsie's shack swung open, empty inside, and behind it, faintly, the smell of smoke and pine. He tried to leave Wren Hollow, packed a bag, saddled a horse, rode west through the mountain pass. But by sundown, he was back in front of his house. The trees hadn't moved. The fog hadn't lifted. But the porch boards now bore initials in carved script. SW plus JW. Silas and Jonah. Carved by someone else. Years ago. And beneath them, she keeps what you forget. That night, he entered the door at 3:17. Not by choice. Not entirely. The key was in his hand before he woke, and the knob turned on its own. Inside, the same hall. Deeper now. Darker. The lantern swinging. The breath behind him heavier. Each step creaked underwater. The walls pulsed. And at the end of the corridor, the room opened. Not with walls. Not with shape. But with names. Whispered. Burned. Forgotten. And there, in the center, Jonah. Still. Pale. Eyes wide. Holding a third key. This one was white. And it had no name at all. Jonah didn't blink. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. He sat cross-legged in the center of the shapeless room, beneath a lantern that flickered without fire. His hands cupped the white key gently, as if it were made of ash. When Silas called his name, Jonah smiled. But it wasn't his brother's smile. The house pulsed. Not the walls. They were gone now. Only fog and breath and remembering. The woman's voice, never shouting, never loud, echoed like prayer in reverse. You forgot him once. Now you must remember. Silas stepped forward. The floor beneath him sighed, sank, rose again. Not wood. Memory. He reached for Jonah's shoulder. It passed through like smoke. But the key, the white one, was solid, cold, smooth, too light. And carved faintly down the middle was a line that looked like a scratch. Or maybe a scar. He took it. The house screamed. But only inside his head. The fog whipped into shapes. Hands, mouths, names he never spoke aloud. And the woman. She stepped through the lantern. Her face was clearer now. Not young. Not old. Just waiting. Hair still braided. Eyes like burned sugar. Dressed the same gray shade as the fog. But this time, she spoke with Jonah's voice. You were born in this house. Your family left. You never did. Silas staggered back. No, he whispered. We're from Wren Hollow. Wren Hollow is what came after. You were given away, Silas. Not to be saved. To keep her fed. He ran. Back through the hallway, down the endless corridor, clutching the white key. The house bent. Shifted. The rooms he passed were not rooms. Each one held someone. A woman reading a letter over and over. A child holding an empty locket. A man sewing his mouth shut with hair. They did not look up. They weren't dead. They were unfinished. He found the door again. Or maybe it found him. Either way, it opened. And he was back in his room. The floor still warm. The mirror still cracked. The key still white. And on his desk, a letter that hadn't been there before. Addressed to him, in his father's handwriting. Inside, 3 words. She is mother. The key trembled in his hand. And for the first time, Silas realized. He had never been afraid of the house. He'd been afraid of what it remembered about him. The white key wouldn't stop shaking. Silas wrapped it in cloth, locked it in a drawer, buried it in the yard. But the next morning, it was on his pillow, warm and damp. The letter from his father burned at the corners. Not by fire, by time. The ink faded with every hour, as if the message had a deadline. She is mother. He said it aloud once. The mirror cracked wider, and the reflection showed not his room, but a cradle. Old Elsie's shack was still empty, but the woods behind it weren't. Silas followed the scent of smoke through the trees, past stones with no names and bones too small to be animal. At the base of an ancient pine, he found a box, wrapped in silk. Inside, a baptismal certificate. His, but not from Wren Hollow, from a village that no longer existed. One the map forgot, one with a single, chilling name. Mother's Rest. He brought the certificate to the sheriff. The man didn't speak, just poured a drink, lit a pipe, and stared at the edge of town. My mother was born there, he said. So was hers. We don't talk about it. Not anymore. Silas asked why. The sheriff nodded toward the woods. Because some houses don't forget. And some names, if you say them, bring the door back. Then he handed Silas a second envelope, unmarked, yellowed with age. Inside, a photo, black and white. The house, but older. And in the window, not a lantern, a woman, holding a baby. That night, Silas placed the white key under his tongue, just to see. At 3:17 a.m., he woke standing at the door. Not walking, standing. The key gone. The door open. Inside, the hallway again. But now the walls were flesh. The lantern, a pulsing heart. And at the end, a nursery. He entered. Cradle. Rocking chair. Mobile made of teeth. And in the crib, a name carved in the wood. Silas Weaver. Returned. Weaver. Not Ward. Returned. Not found. He wasn't visiting the house. He had escaped it. Until now. Behind him, a lullaby. Sweet. Wordless. Familiar. And the woman. She no longer waited. She welcomed. With open arms. A soft smile. And a voice that said, "My son. My house. My hunger." The cradle rocked. Not gently. Not slowly. It moved like something inside was trying to get out. But when Silas stepped closer, it was empty. No baby. No blanket. Only a lock of black hair tied in twine. And a tooth. His own. The one he'd lost when he was 6, falling off the barn roof. He stepped back. The mobile spun without wind. The teeth clinked like wind chimes. And from the corners of the nursery, the shadows pulled inward. Shapes formed. Not spirits. Versions. Of himself. One, age 9, with a broken wrist. One, age 15, staring blankly with eyes sewn shut. One, older than he was now. Eyes hollow, holding the same white key. They stood around the cradle. They did not speak, but the woman did. She sat in the rocker now, where the shadows had gathered thickest. Her voice was warm, velvet, unblinking. You were born in the hush, stolen by breath, fed to forgetting. Silas shook his head. I'm from Wren Hollow. I have a brother, Jonah. I was raised. You were borrowed, and now I call you back. She held out her hand. Her palm held a black feather, still wet. A name must have a root, she said. Take it, and your bones will remember." Silas refused. He turned, ran, but the hallway was gone. Now only fog and mirrors everywhere. Each one showed the house behind him. Each one showed Jonah inside, calling, but never moving. He screamed his brother's name. No echo, no reply. Only one mirror trembled, framed in bone, hung from nothing, cracked dead center, and through it, Jonah blinked. He was alive. Barely. His lips formed a word. "Don't take her name." The woman's voice returned. All around him now, inside him, he was a gift. "You were a debt. Come back to the beginning and the door will close. Or stay and become the house." Silas stepped toward the mirror, raised the white key, and for the first time, it grew warm. A whisper threaded through the fog. One leaves when one stays. Jonah or him, not both. Silas looked into the glass. His reflection vanished. The cradle stopped, and the house breathed in. Silas stood before the mirror, one hand on the frame, one hand on the key. No reflection, no time, just fog behind the glass, and Jonah fading within it. The woman's voice crept like roots around his ears. "He took your place once. He wore your name, held your life. That was the bargain." Silas clenched the key. "Then take me back." "That is not how it works," she murmured. "You must give it. Willingly. Fully. A name for a name. A life for a life." Jonah pressed both hands to the mirror. Behind him, the room cracked. The cradle dissolved. The shadows whispered, and the house exhaled. Silas fell to his knees. The white key pulsed in his palm. Not cold, not hot, alive. He remembered a night long ago. A storm. The woods. A fire-lit porch. His mother's arms, but not the woman in the rocker. Another woman. Crying. Carrying him away from a house that didn't exist on any map. The memory was soft. Wrong at the edges. Planted. But real enough to hurt. The woman appeared beside him again. Closer now. No longer distant. "Say your name," she said. "The one you chose. Not the one you were given. Say it, and he walks free." Silas closed his eyes. The fog stirred. The mirror flickered. Jonah's breath faltered behind the glass. And then, Silas whispered it. Not the name on the certificate. Not the one carved in the cradle. Not the one she wanted. But his own. Silas Ward. "I am not yours." The white key shattered. The mirror screamed. Jonah fell forward, out of the glass, into the room. Gasping, sobbing, alive. The house howled. Windows shattered. Floor split. Fog collapsed. And the woman. She shrieked once. Only once. Not in rage. In recognition. Then she vanished. Jonah and Silas ran. Not through hallways. Not through woods. Through memory. And when they awoke, they were in Wren Hollow. On their porch. Just before dawn. The house was gone. No fog. No door. Just dirt where it had once stood. Flattened and still, like nothing had ever breathed there. But in Jonah's hand, a feather. Black. Wet. The feather never dried. No matter where Jonah placed it. On the windowsill, the mantel, inside a sealed jar. It stayed wet, black, silken, still warm. It didn't rot, didn't smell, didn't change. But every morning it moved, slightly, always pointing north. Silas stopped dreaming. He didn't sleep much after that night, but when he did, there were no more mirrors, no house, no cradle, just quiet. Until one night, a single breath stirred the air by his ear. Soft, delicate, familiar. "You took a name," it whispered, "but you left the door." In the weeks that followed, animals went missing. Cats, goats, a foal from the Kelly farm, bones found in a perfect spiral in the field. And children began drawing houses that didn't exist. Long halls, lanterns, women without eyes, all facing away. Jonah grew quiet. He didn't speak of the house, not to Silas, not to anyone. But once, Silas found him sitting at the edge of the woods, holding the feather, whispering something over and over. "She gave me your name first. She gave me your name first. She gave me." Silas took the feather from him, burned it. The fire hissed, flared, then turned blue. That night, the mirror returned, cracked like before. Same frame, same size, but not in their house. In the schoolhouse, hung above the blackboard. No one remembered putting it there. And in the glass, a hallway, a lantern, and a single rocking cradle. Silas left Wren Hollow a week later. No note, no farewell, just gone. Jonah stayed. He tended the farm, avoided the woods, never married. But sometimes, when it rained just wrong, he heard a knock at the window. 3 soft taps. No one there, just a faint reflection of a house behind him, with a light in the window. The house never needed walls. It only needed a name. And now, it had 2.